if you go into medicine these days, it's because it's in your heart. Everybody thinks, oh, you're a doctor, you're making money. Yeah, but you come out with a lot of debt. They don't like to talk about that, but that's a whole nother story. So you have to be dedicated. And, in that dedication, unfortunately, sometimes you have to deal with a lot of other things. I remember third year med student, all gung ho. I'm doing my surgery rotation. I'm going this OR and learn some surgery, right? Went in bright and early one morning. The surgeon looked over at me. The nurse was helping me get all gowned and everything. Oh, she's a girl. She's not going to be able to handle this type of surgery. It's
Oh,
going to be
wow.
too rough. Summer, I'm just all excited putting my little gown and gloves on. I didn't even pay attention to what he's saying. The nurse turned around and looked at him and she's like, what did you just say? I don't think she's appropriate for this case. She might, it's going to be really gory and maybe she needs to come back and do something. So, needless to say, number one, the nurse was livid. She went off.
That's amazing though that she stood
That
up.
she
Yeah.
obviously, I guess maybe hadn't happened before, but I turned around. I'm a third year, still a little intimidated with this surgeon telling me that I'm not supposed to be in this space.
Hey everybody, I'm back with another episode of Soul Success Stories. Today, I am talking to my friend, Dr. Jara Best. And she has some exciting news to share with me, which I will all find out together. I'm so excited. So I met Jara doing this work. I met her when I was doing work with Exchange Club Family Center. I was
Mm-hmm.
speaking to the teen moms in their First Steps program, and I would come to the graduations, and I would speak at the graduations. And there was another lady there were others too, but there was
Yeah, yeah.
another lady that I really connected with who also had a heart for these teen moms and was coming and giving her time and giving back to them. And that was Dr. Jara Best. And I learned so much about her, including that she was my soror. And so we connected back then. I guess that probably was like in 2010,
Yeah,
2011. So
2010. Yeah.
it's been a long time. It has been a long time. So I'm super excited to catch up with her and I'm super excited to share her story. So
Mm-hmm.
Jara, tell us a little
Hi,
bit
Summer.
about yourself. Oh, first, let me say this. So her new title
Oh.
is Tennessee Medical Director at Equity Health.
Mm-hmm.
That's her new title. So that's what we're going to find out more about together. But Jara, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Summer. First, I'm so glad to be here and to see you because we've been trying to catch up for I don't know how long. So it's absolute pleasure to be here, and I'm so excited for you. And I just love watching all your success. So, gosh, 2010, that was a while ago, but time goes by fast, doesn't
It
it? So,
does.
man, so like Summer said, I am Dr. Jara Best. I am a trained, good gosh, a pediatrician, general pediatrician. I practiced for over 20 years at initially pediatric consultants, now Lebonheur Pediatrics, but general pediatrics, and just recently transitioned to my current position, Tennessee Medical Director at Equality Health, which is a value-based company. But we'll talk about that later. But goodness, like I said, pediatrics medicine has been my life for ever. So, knew I was going to be a doctor. I think maybe in high school, you go through like, I'm going to be in this, I'm going to be that. But I always had that feeling I was going to be in the helping field.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
knew I was going to be doing that. I mean, I was doing it since the fifth grade. I think I've been an auntie since I was in the fifth grade. So I was always taking care of somebody or babysitting somebody's baby. Um, but even before that, I always knew I was going to be in the helping field. So my mom was a nurse. My goodness, for 53 years, she hates me to tell people that, but she was a nurse. She was an OR nurse. So I've always had kind of that connection with the medical field. I'd see her get up in the middle of the night, have to go be on call, have to go do these surgeries. And I was like, I don't know about that part, but I like the part that I got to the hospital to help people. So
Well, let's get into that in a second.
yeah.
tell us a little bit about your family and where you're from.
Goodness, I'm a Navy brat. So I grew up in Millington, Tennessee. I grew up on the base back in the day when it was a full active base. Our next station was actually New Orleans, but my dad decided to retire here. So we stayed here. So I didn't do as much traveling as my brother and sister. I'm the youngest of three. So graduated from Millington Central High School and went to Tennessee State University, TSU Tigers. Graduated there with a joint degree. Tennessee State had a program with Meharry. So did my first 3 years at TSU and then my final year at Meharry and got my degree in medical technology. Still on that medical path, but knew I was going to go to med school, but I needed a break. So took a break between graduating from college and then applied to the University of Tennessee College of Medicine here in Memphis, so right downtown, and went to med school there for 4 years. Did my pediatric training at Lebonheur downtown, and literally got hired straight out of residency to my practice. So I've only had that one job for 20 years with that same practice. And it's been amazing. It was wonderful. So, but after 20 years, I was like, yeah, there's more I could be doing. And that's how I got into my new field. So
I can't wait to talk about it. Okay. But I also know your husband. You gotta talk about the husband. Sold him season tickets. I remember meeting him.
Yes, those three boys.
Before I met you, I met him because I sold him season tickets to the Memphis Grizzlies when I was a temporary sales rep with the Memphis Grizzlies, my first job.
That's right. So
talk about him and the family.
So, like I said, married for, Lord have mercy, long time. Don't tell about it. Well, we had three sons. So a boy mom, the oldest, 25-year-old, he's an architect. He lives in Atlanta. My second son is 21 years old. He's at Xavier University in Louisiana. He's in his senior year. He's majoring in sociology and maybe med school. His minor is biology. So we'll see. And then I have my 17-year-old. He's getting ready to graduate from high school. So I got one more at the house. And they're awesome. They keep me busy. So I'm only girl in my house. I even have a boy dog. So I've been the only girl.
Well, that is awesome, Jara. So look, I'm so excited to get into your story because I've watched your family grow. I mean,
yeah, it's literally
for real. It's been a very interesting journey, and I love and admire you so much for being a Black female doctor, and for your giving heart.
Yes.
And so I've always watched you and admired you and respected you and looked up to you. And so I'm excited to get into your story because I know it's going to inspire a lot of people. So in this program, I have what I call the So What Success System. It's my belief that anyone, absolutely anyone, can be successful if they learn how to overcome obstacles, eliminate excuses, and calculate choices. They can have what I call So What Success. And that's success no matter what happens in life.
Right.
And Jara, you've demonstrated that through your life, and I'm excited to get into your story to share how you've been a So What Success woman. So first, talk about some of the obstacles that you've had to overcome to get to where you are today.
Well, my goodness. I can start just with that medical journey. I went to, like I said, graduated from Millington Central High School back in the 90s and had a complete change of environment when I went to Tennessee State University, HBCU, which was a wonderful experience for me. And then went right back into med school back home here at UT. So I've had what I call the dynamic of seeing the world of medicine in a lot of different forms. But when I applied to med school, now this was, just a few years ago, a while ago, the process was different, but honestly, I can say the environment's the same. Okay. When I applied to the University of Tennessee, right downtown, where everybody knows where UT is, if you live in the Mid-South, right there in the middle of downtown, right across the street from Forest Park. So got accepted. We were all excited. But at that time, I usually took a class, first year med students of 165 students. And of that 165 students, 20 of us were Black. That was the largest class in the history of the school of African American students ever, was 20. So that's just to kind of give you a perspective. And first 2 years of med school are hard. You're, 2 years, you're just in the books, you're in the class 8 hours a day, come up for air to breathe, but you're studying hard. And then your third, fourth year is when you get into the clinical side of medicine. And that's where, still have that support base. You get a lot of good lifelong friends, which I still have to this day, and they're practicing docs in the city. So you probably know a lot of them. But when you get into that clinical side of medicine and you're actually in those operating rooms as a med student, and you're in those call rooms and you're running back and forth through the med, you really get to see, number one, how important your job is. If you go into medicine these days, it's because it's in your heart. Everybody thinks, oh, you're a doctor, you're making money. Yeah, but you come out with a lot of debt. They don't like to talk about that, but that's a whole other story. So you have to be dedicated. And, in that dedication, unfortunately, sometimes you have to deal with a lot of other things. I remember third year med student, all gung-ho, I'm doing my surgery rotation. I'm going this OR and, learn some surgery, right? Went in bright and early one morning. The surgeon looked over at me. The nurse was helping me get all gowned and everything. Oh, she's a girl. She's not going to be able to handle this type of surgery. It's going to be too rough. Summer, I'm just all excited putting my little gown and gloves on. I didn't even pay attention to what he's saying. The nurse turned around and looked at him and she's like, what did you just say? I don't think she's appropriate for this case. She might, it's going to be really gory and maybe she needs to come back and do something. So, needless to say, number one, the nurse was livid. She went off.
That's amazing, though, that she stood up.
She obviously, yeah. I guess maybe hadn't happened before, but I turned around. I'm a third year, still a little intimidated with this surgeon telling me that I'm not supposed to be in this space. So I'm getting there. I stand up on the little stool. I'm a little short. I stand on the stool. The whole case, and I'm in the whole case. Like I said, my mom was an OR nurse, so I'm used to seeing surgeries. I mean, if you're going to go to med school, you're going to have to see some stuff. You're going to have that grit, that determination, and you're going to have a thick skin. So, that was one of the first really vivid memories of me just having to prove myself. I mean, I stayed the whole surgery, did great. I was holding this, that, and the other, moving things around. I think it was a removal of something. I'm literally moving things around. And he turns around and says, oh, great job, and just leaves. That's it. So, and that's just one of the many, I could tell you several stories like that.
Imagine.
I'd go into patient rooms, even while I was in clinical private practice. I'd go into the rooms to see the new moms and their babies, because I'd have to see the babies in the nursery. I'd go in, hello, good morning, I'm Dr. Best. I saw your baby in the nursery. Oh, are you you my nurse? Can you go ahead and tell them what I want for breakfast? I was like, well, I'll let your nurse know, but I'm Dr. Look, my nurses are my backbone, first of all, so I didn't mind doing that, but just the automatic assumption that I'm not the physician. I'm telling you who I am, but it is hard to after a while, at first it might hurt your feelings, like, I did all this work, I went to school all this time. But once you get into practice, you know why you're doing it, who you're doing it for, and most importantly, who you are, and know what skills that you have and know what you're capable of. Those things don't hurt as much. They hurt sometimes because you don't, some days it just really catches you off guard. And that's just honest, because you're human. You're not expecting to be perceived as something that you're not consistently. And so Black female physicians make up 3% of all the physicians in the country. So it's hard, but it's so gratifying when you see when you go into a patient room and somebody's eyes light up and say, "You're my doctor." I said, well, yes, I'm your doctor. It's Doc McStuffins. Look, Mom, you get excited because you want people to be able to see you so they know that they can be you. if that makes sense.
And that's really, as I was like, again,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little bit younger than you are. And so
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I met you, I was looking up to you and I was admiring you
Uh-huh.
and the fact that you're a doctor because I didn't at the
Mm-hmm.
time know any, or very few, I won't say any, but I knew very few female
Mm-hmm.
doctors and definitely Black female doctors. And so I'm so excited to be sharing you and
Mm-hmm.
your story. And again, just putting you, it's an education thing. That's why people,
Yeah,
right? I know you
right.
knew that.
Mhm.
That's why
Yeah.
people were surprised because that's not normal,
Right.
right?
That's not what we're used to seeing.
That's not what we're used to
Um,
seeing, but we're making it clear that this is a reality.
it is.
And
And that
I'm happy to be a part of showing that. Yeah.
apps, and I appreciate it because and it's not just medicine. I went to dinner just earlier this week with Black physicians, Black pharmacists, Black dentists, and we're all on the same mission of trying to make sure that we let students throughout the Mid-South, throughout the country know like, hey, we're here. You can do this.
You can do
And one of my colleagues, she was so funny. She's like, I need them to do this because I can't do this forever. And I need somebody to take care of this, which is valid. But the
absolutely.
goal is to make sure we let our students know, even down as young as middle school, that we're here. And yes, you can. I mean, definitely, if I can, you can. A little bit of my story. I went to when I did start med school. Um, I graduated from TSU, came home, worked for a year, went to med school. My third year of med school, I had my first son in my third year of medical school. Now, he was a blessing. He was a surprise, but when I tell you, it's redirected my course, but I was on it and I knew I was going to finish it. And he's what we call he's our med school baby. So everybody, he's 25, he's still called the med school baby. But just knowing that you had that support, because it is I'm not going to lie, it's not an easy journey, but it is so worthwhile and it is possible. And you can do it. I tell them all the time, and I need you to
I,
do it.
I love it. I love it. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and I'm glad you shared that too, is that you
Mm-hmm.
had your son even while you were on this challenging journey
Yes.
and that
Mm-hmm.
yet still you finished it. Well, Jara, talk about some of the excuses you had to eliminate. The second part of
Mm-hmm.
the success system is you had to eliminate excuses,
Oh God.
had obstacles that you talked about, a lot of challenges, right? But what are
Yes.
some of the excuses you had to eliminate to keep pushing forward?
Oh goodness. Especially when I had that first baby, I was like, oh gosh, there's no way under work. You know what? I already got my degree from Tennessee State and Meharry. I can go ahead and work full time as a med tech and still make, I'll be fine. We'll be fine. Um, but and I honestly, when he got here, that was one of a serious option I had. But I knew that I'd always have that little feeling of regret. You know, I
Yeah.
should have, I could have, I know I could have. So even though it was hard, you'd have to like, okay, I'm not gonna settle. I can't settle because it'd be cheating myself and it'd be cheating him in the long run. So, that was a big excuse. Like, oh, I got a baby in med school. I can't finish it. Well, no, yes, you can. I was one of the, I think I was one of the only ones in my med school class. That's hence he's the med school baby. I was the first one in my med school class to have a kid. Out of that 165 that came in, I was one of the first ones to have a child. Because in medicine, a lot of women, not a lot, and it's definitely changed over the years, but they will postpone their families. They'll put it off. I can't. I'm gonna wait till later. I'm gonna wait till later, which is perfectly fine. But then when they get to that time and they're wanting to have children, sometimes they're having difficulties or they just like, well, I don't want to now. So for me to be able to have this blessing at that time of my life, I knew it was up to me to, okay, here we are. Let's keep on going. I mean, I would take him to class. He'd be on my hip. He'd be sitting there playing with somebody while I'm studying. So that was one of my big excuses. And then, other challenges I talked about where you're not expected or people don't think you belong in that room. And you're like, well, maybe I don't, I don't want to do this field anyway. If I'm doing, but I forget what it was, orthopedic or something, I don't want to, why am I on call like this 24 on, 24 off? Why am I doing this? Is this what I really want to do? And you'd have to sit and have these conversations with yourself. Like, yes, this is what you want to do. Don't cheat yourself. Don't cheat, don't cheat those who are depending on you too, but mainly don't cheat yourself. You know you have it in you. You know it's there. If you got that far, then you know you got to keep on going, and it's all worth it at the end. And so those excuses always, and they'll sometimes creep up on me now. My new position, like, how did I end up here? Am I supposed to be here? But evidently I am, because
Right. Well, let's talk about that because so that's a good transition to the third part. To the third part of Soul Success System is calculating choices. So talk about some of the calculated choices that you've made throughout your journey, including making this transition.
So, like you said, we met at the First Steps Mothers Program. So throughout practicing medicine, I've always done something else. I've always had my volunteer side. And people they'll always ask, well, how do you have time to do that when you got these 3 kids and you got to practice? And you like, if you want something and you feel like it's in your heart, you'll make time to do it. So I enjoy, actually, it was kind of a release. It was kind of a break from medicine for me to be able to go and talk to those teenage moms, giving them basic medical guidance. So I've always kind of had that giving arm anyway. So, and that's why you'll see me, if there's an event going on, I was like, well, if I've been blessed, I'm sure you're supposed to be blessing somebody else. And then I enjoy it too. So it's win-win either way. So along that journey, I've done a lot of volunteerism and in conjunction with my medical practice. And throughout the medical journey, 20 years of medicine is a lot. It's gone through a lot of changes, a lot of changes. And then of course, we had that pandemic. Nobody in medicine thought they'd be living through a pandemic. We read about it in all those books and everything else, but nobody thought we were going to be in a pandemic, and it happened. And when it did, we heard about this many deaths and everything. A lot of physicians had a lot of burnout. I was one of them, and it was devastating. That was a really rough period. That same following year, my father passed away on Christmas Eve. So in that healing journey, recovering from COVID, it was a lot to try to process, first of all, because you're still a doctor. We were still working, we didn't stop. We were still in there, but we had colleagues who passed away. We had patients who were dying, and it was a lot. And burnout is very real in every field. It's not talked about a lot, but we had a lot of physician suicides that we were seeing. Didn't want to talk about it, but we were still having to deal with it. So as I was, continuing my medicine, practicing medicine, doing peds, trying to do as much volunteerism as I could, I knew that I needed to do something different. I had to still leverage what I wanted to do, but in a different way. And so I had gone, like I said, in practice for a while. So I had literally cut down my number of days that I was practicing. Both by choice and because I was having health issues too. My body was telling me, you can't walk around with a blood pressure 200 over 110 and sit like nothing's going on. And you're a physician and that's not right. Right. And you're having consistent migraines. And so your body lets you know when you need to do something different. And so I had, oh my goodness, I did all the things. I got coaches, I got mentors, I did retreats, and I'll talk about my silent retreats, which were really helpful. But I did all the things with coaching, and they all helped, and they helped me realize like I have skills that are valuable for other industries. Medicine, the way they teach it is this is what you can do. So they don't teach us a lot of the other business part and all that other things that we need to know. Hopefully they're doing it now. But just realizing that the skills you develop of 20 years in the profession, you can do more than one thing, either inside that same field, and I'm finding out outside of that same field too. But you have to realize you're valuable in more than one space. And I recognize that during my volunteerism in the medicine field in different organizations I am. So I realize that. But it's just that fear of the unknown of doing something that I've had the same job for 20 years, right? But doing something that was still within that medical scope, but completely different to what you're used to. And so mine was honestly just a God story. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm not LinkedIn savvy. I'm just going to tell you now, but I'm on LinkedIn, and it was for a lot of my speaking thing, my volunteerism and speaking and things like that. But and you get like invitations to different jobs and whatever, and I would just like push the like no thanks, no thanks button. And then this company is called Equality Health. They're based out of Phoenix. They sent me the introduction email. I was like, Equality Health, that sounds different. So I pushed a little sure button and got in contact with the recruiter. And honestly, this is how I know this was a blessing and a God thing, because I was just talking to the lady like I'm talking to you, not realizing I was getting interviewed. Okay. So
Okay.
she said, well, I think you'll be a good fit for this company. I'm going to go ahead and move you on to the next phase. I said, phase of what? She was like, okay.
I love it.
She had to break it down to me. She was like, I was like, oh, okay, well, sure. So I literally went through an interview process, which was different because, mind you, I'd had one job
Yeah. Yep.
without a residency. So that was a learning experience too, but it helped me to identify what my value was, what my talents were, what my skills were outside of the skills of being a pediatrician. Because I know I can do that. And I know I can do that well. I did it for 20 years. But for me to say, hey, you got good organizational skills, you got good communication skills, you got good presentation skills. So things like that, you're forced to recognize. And once you realize all the value you can add in another space, it's liberating.
It is.
It is. It makes you feel good about yourself. Like, hey, I'm supposed to be in this space too. I can do this. I can do this. I don't know how to do this, but I know how to find out how to do this. So it helps you, it stretches you. And
Yeah.
that's where I'm in right now. So I took that leap of faith and retired from practice.
Tell me about the timeline. When was that?
That was in January. I accepted they offered me the position. I accepted in January. So I went part-time in clinic. So I had, because you have to give a longer notice when you're a physician that long. I give a little bit longer notice. So I worked part-time both in clinical practice and with my new position in January. And then in May, I saw my last patient. It was a baby at the newborn nursery. And so I got to hug and snuggle one more baby as my last my last patient on there. And it was bittersweet, but it was exciting too. And that's where I am now, the exciting phase. Still sometimes scary. Like I said, I'm getting used to Teams meetings and all this other kind of different stuff, but it's fun. I still have the opportunity to see some of my little patients in Kroger. They'll run from me when they see me still, but I still get to see my older ones, which is always a blessing. I was actually at an event for your chapter, University of Memphis, Epsilon Epsilon. I went to their brunch this past weekend, and they were honoring wonderful women and giving scholarships. And one of the recipients was one of my patients, and she kept running up to me. And of course, she's taller than me, of course, but and I was so proud of her, and because I just remember her journey too. And just being encouraging with her and being like, oh, girl, you can do this. You're going to do medicine. That's it. You're going to take care of me. That's my mantra. So just to see how far you come in your career when you see a young lady that you've been seeing since she was an infant, to see where she is now, lets you know that you did some good work and you still got plenty more to do. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
I love it. And you're talking about the Prominent Black Women's Banquet.
Yeah.
And I spent many years planning it when I was an undergrad, and I've received the honor twice. I received it as an undergrad and I was really blessed to get it after I wrote my book. So it was probably after I met you that I got to, and then I got to go back and be the speaker one year.
Well, see there, you talking about it was a wonderful event.
I know, and that's awesome. But I think about what you said, and and how you're continuing to be an example. So you've been an example as a Black woman or woman, pediatrician, and just in the STEM field, period, right?
Right.
But then now you're an example of boldly pursuing change and the evolution of life and understanding your value, and that you don't have to stay in a position. And
Right.
it sounds like your journey is similar to mine, even in that wasn't that you hated what you
Right.
were doing, you love what you were doing, you just knew it was something else. It was just time to do something else and
Right.
a different call for
Exactly.
you.
Exactly.
So yeah, you're continuing to be a beautiful example and a role model because that really and truly the world we live in right now.
Yes.
It is that people are changing and doing things differently and pursuing new opportunities. And I think we all need to be, even when we're afraid,
Yes.
go for it and
Yes.
do it and try
Just
it.
try it.
You said something else that I thought was really good. You were just like, I don't know how to do it, but I know I can figure it out.
That's right.
And that has been my mantra for life too. I love that.
Yeah,
So,
and it's a life is learning, and I tell my boys that all the time. You know, you can like you can finish your degree, you know, get that first job, but learning doesn't stop.
no, no,
Lifelong learning is a blessing, and sometimes you learn stuff you didn't intend to, but once you learn it, you keep that lesson, you keep on moving.
and keep moving, keep moving. So, Jar, you've definitely demonstrated you know how to overcome obstacles,
Oh,
eliminate excuses, and calculate choices. So, you are a success woman. But how do you now define success? What's your personal definition of success?
oh my goodness. I think my personal definition of success now in this phase of my life is being content and at peace with my choices that I've made and recognizing when I need to rest and reset and having the opportunity and the ability to be able to do so. Um, you know, people think, you know, you're a doctor, you're successful. And I acknowledge that. It was a hard journey. And I, you know, I earned that MD, right?
Yes,
So
girl.
I am successful on that part, but there's so many different levels of success, and success looks different for everybody and at different phases in your life too.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Yes.
Last question, last question. What is one piece of advice you would give someone who's watching this, who wants to have success, however
Mhm.
they define it, but they experience obstacles in their life? What's one piece of advice you would leave?
Oh goodness. If you feel it and you know it's something you want to do, even though it looks like it's not attainable or it's I can't do that or that takes too long, but you know in your heart that's what you're supposed to be doing and you want to do it.
I love it.
And follow your heart, but take your brain with you, okay? Use your common sense. But you make sure you follow that path that you know your heart and mind is set into.
I love it. I love it. Follow your heart and take your brain with you.
That's
That's
right.
good. That is good. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Dr. Jara Best.
Thank
It
you,
has been an
Summer.
honor. Girl, it has been an honor and a privilege really to know you and to have you as
Mhm.
part of my life and for you to be a role model for me. So
Oh,
thank you
thank
so
you,
much.
Summer. And the sentiments are the same. I just so enjoy watching your success. I get excited every time I see you doing something new. I say, oh, there's Kim.
Thank you. Love you, girl.
Love you too.